Both Germany and Poland are countries that bear the scars of a past communist regime. Architecture dating back to this era acts as a reminder of the tumultuous histories boasted by these countries. The juxtaposition between these buildings and more modern construction acts as a testament to these countries' progression since communism and totalitarianism. This video highlights three monuments that display this juxtaposition: the Berlin Wall, the Reichstag, and the Palace of Culture and Science.
The Berlin Wall was constructed because between 1949 and 1961, 2.5 million East Germans fled to the West. The emigration occurred because of the fear of the Sovietization in the East. Up until 1952, it was very easy for East Germans to cross over from border to border with ease, until the Soviets realized the amount of Germans that are fleeing from over the East to West. Therefore, they decided to build barbed wire fences around, preventing them to cross over. On August 13, 1961, the construction of the Berlin Wall began. The streets alongside the border were destroyed to make it impassable, and barbed wire fences started being installed that would run along the 156 kilometers around the western sectors, and the 43 kilometers that divided West and East Berlin. The Berlin Wall went through 4 phases. The first phase was the wired fence in 1961. The second phase was to improve the wire fence from 1962 to 1965. The third phase was the creation of the concrete wall from 1965 to 1974. And the fourth phase was the border wall from 1975 to 1989. The Berlin Wall had many negative effects on the German people. For instance, it divided families, it eradicated the easiest way to travel between the East and West Germany, and essentially, the wall isolated West Berlin in the whole of Germany. With the establishment of the Berlin Wall, tensions arose between the US and the Soviet Union, with troops moving around, facing each other, standing guard. Through the establishment of the Berlin Wall, the only possible way to travel between East and West was through Checkpoint Charlie. During the Cold War, Checkpoint Charlie served as the main crossing point between East and West Berlin, where each side had the US Army soldiers and the Soviets, who were constantly facing one another in case one decided to fire upon the other. Where does the Berlin Wall stand today? Well, today 1.3 kilometers of the wall remain as the East Side Gallery. And the East Side Gallery is a symbol of freedom not only to the German people, but to the whole world.
At the end of the Second World War, the Reichstag was in ruins. Throughout the Cold War, there was no real use for the building since the seat of the government of West Germany had been established in Bonn in 1949. Following the reunification of Germany, a ceremony was held at the Reichstag building on October 3, 1990. A day later, the Parliament of the United Germany would assemble in an act of symbolism in the Reichstag building. In 1992, Norman Foster won the contest for the reconstruction of the Reichstag. His winning concept looked very different from what was later executed. His original design did not include a cupola. During the reconstruction, the building was almost completely gutted, taking out everything except the outer walls, including all changes made by Baumgarten in the 1960s. Respect for the historic aspects of the building was one of the conditions stipulated to the architects, so traces of historical events were to be retained in a visible state. Among the historical aspects to be retained was the graffiti left by the Soviet soldiers after the fall of Berlin. Written in Cyrillic script, they include such slogans as Hitler, Kaput, Long Live Stalin, as well as names of individual soldiers. Graffiti with racist or sexist themes were removed. The reconstruction was completed in 1999. The German government was officially established in the Reichstag on April 19, 1999. The Reichstag is now the second most visited attraction in Germany, not least because of the huge glass dome that was erected on the roof as a
The Reichstag's dome is an integral part of the building's dualistic nature. The dome is made of glass and offers a 360-degree view of the surrounding Berlin cityscape. The debating chamber of the Bundestag, the German parliament, can be seen down below. A mirrored cone in the center of the dome directs sunlight into the building. The dome is open to the public and can be reached by ramps that resemble a double helix. The dome symbolizes that the people are above the government, as was not the case during National Socialism. The glass dome was also designed by Foster to be environmentally friendly. Daylight works in junction with the mirrored cone to effectively decrease the carbon emissions of the building. The futuristic and transparent design of the Reichstag dome makes it a unique landmark. It symbolizes Berlin's attempt to move away from a past of Nazism and instead towards a future with a heavier emphasis on a united, democratic Germany.
The Palace of Culture and Sciences is the tallest building in Poland and the 8th tallest building in the European Union. It stands 231 meters tall and includes a 43-meter high spire. It contains a mixture of Stalinist architecture as well as Polish historicism, and it also takes some inspiration from American skyscrapers. Currently, it serves as the headquarters of many companies and public institutions. Originally known as the Joseph Stalin Palace of Culture and Science, the dedication to Stalin was revoked after de-Stalinization. Stalin's name was removed from both the interior lobby and one of the building's sculptures. Elements of Polish architecture used in the construction of the Palace of Culture and Science include pieces of masonry copied from the Renaissance houses and palaces of Krakow. Construction of the Palace of Culture and Sciences started in 1952 and lasted until 1955. It was originally conceived as a gift from the Soviet people to the people of Poland. The tower was constructed almost entirely by 3,500 workers from the Soviet Union, of whom 16 died in accidents during its construction. The palace has hosted performances by notable international artists, one of whom are the Rolling Stones, who held a concert here in 1967. This concert was the first held by a major Western rock group behind the Iron Curtain. The palace is the city's most visible landmark. The building was controversial from its inception. Many Poles initially hated the building because they considered it to be a symbol of Soviet domination, and some of these negative feelings persist today. Some Poles argue that the building destroyed the aesthetic balance of the old city and imposed a disunion with the other buildings. The contrast has been somewhat lessened over the years with the construction of several skyscrapers nearby. In 2010, the building was modernized and high-powered LED lights were installed. This allows the palace to take various colors at night.
Following Stalin's death in 1953, social and political changes rocked the country. Construction priorities and architecture were also affected. In 1955, Nikita Khrushchev, faced with the slow pace of housing construction, called for drastic measures to accelerate the process. This involved developing new mass production technology and removing decorative extras from buildings. Concrete blocks were manufactured in every major city and were installed directly on steel frames of houses. These were known as block houses. A typical housing project was developed using concrete panels to make a simple 5-story house. This style was popularized and replicated on many other institutional buildings, such as hospitals and schools. The result, at times, was entire areas becoming aesthetically asymmetrical. Nevertheless, as buildings became more square and simple, they brought with them functionality. Rapidly built, their quality was poor. Their monotonous appearance contributed to the gray and dull stereotype characteristic of socialist cities.
In conclusion, the architecture of the European cities visited on this trip contain an interesting combination of both modern and Cold War elements. This juxtaposition is provided from many beautiful monuments with impressive detail embedded in each.